Hey everyone, my name is Aaron Bennett and I am making this video about my experience with Infusio Beverly Hills. This business is no longer in business and you can just see their Yelp review, their Yelp page. It was shut down. I went there September 11th, 2017 was when my first date, the first date I got there, and it was a 2-week program. The cost was $25,000. I was full disclosure. I did receive a discount. I paid 20. Then I had 2 weeks of Airbnb fees, 2 weeks of food, so it ended up being around 25,000 anyway. Yeah. So I'm making this video for myself to kind of share my story and also to share a lot of other stories that I've heard from people who either are too sick to get on camera to talk, whose brains aren't functional enough to put sentences together, who are too afraid to share their story, or for another reason. So I'm involved in a lot of Facebook groups. And a lot of these groups have a lot of people who went to either the Infusio in Beverly Hills, mostly because these are mostly people in the USA, or they went to the Infusio in Germany, which is still in operation as of this video. I personally know, well, in my group, I believe there was either 7 to 8 people who were in my kind of 2-week group with me. But there are, I personally know 15, 20 people that went there by name. I've seen hundreds of stories in the groups. And I want to make this video, before I kind of dive into my story, I want to make this video as factual as I can. I don't want to get really emotional. I don't want to get kind of projecting or doing what I think is happening or what I think happened for a number of reasons. One, Infusio has sent legal letters to ex-patients who have talked about them or have done things that Infusio did not like. So I do not want to set myself up for to get a letter in the mail. It's just not. I'm still very sick right now. I know I sound maybe like I'm not, but I am. I've never been worse. And I'll get into that a little later, I guess. But I just want to say I'm actually not blaming that on Infusio. I know a lot of people do. A lot of people blame a lot of how horrible they were from their stem cell treatment because they believed, and this is not me, they believed it was very careless how they were doing the pre-treatment for the first 13 days. The SVF, how the fat stem cells, stromovascular fraction, how that can cause a whole bunch of issues like multiple chemical sensitivities, MCS, and also mast cell activation syndrome, MCAS. So I'm not a scientist. I'm not saying one way or another that is the case, but there's a lot of very smart people who blame how horrible they're doing and an immediate tank in how they felt right after their stem cell therapy. But that hasn't been my experience. I did not have a dramatic marked decline after I finished. Mine has been a slow decline with various, just tons of symptoms that I'm experiencing, from tons of brain fog, tons of fatigue, ton of pain. I'm just going quickly. I don't want to make this video about my symptoms necessarily. A lot of issues from all the different systems of the body. If you're familiar with Lyme disease, I don't have to explain that to you. You definitely understand how it can be multi-systematory. All right, so I started there 9/11, 2017. The first kind of red flag looking back on it for me was how little they wanted any medical history of mine. They didn't want to qualify me at all. There was no pre-qualification that I ever went through. That should have been a very big red flag, that they are just willing to take, in my experience, anybody's money who is willing to pay them. If you say you have Lyme disease, if you just verbally tell them that was enough. They didn't want any tests for me. Now, I don't know how they're doing things right now in Germany. All I know is my experience, what they were doing in Beverly Hills when I went there. So my first kind of consult, which I didn't even need to do a consult, was with a doctor, an elderly gentleman doctor, an elderly dude who was no longer there by the time I got to that center. He was let go. I think he was fired or whatever. Or he became a different kind of member, a different kind of doctor. He wasn't like practicing with the patients. I'm not going to start dropping names again. Not the point of this video. That was a joke, in my opinion. That I was there with a friend who can back me up. That was a joke. That visit, I had a whole bunch of questions. Essentially, would I be a good candidate? Does he think that I'll get better? I mean, everybody wants to know before you spend $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. I mean, geez, like you want to know, like, okay, have you seen people who have been in my situation, and have they improved? Have they gotten better? I got no answers, none of that. Granted, I understand how somebody couldn't say, yes, I guarantee you'll get better. I get that. That makes sense to me. But there wasn't any validation of any sort. So that should have been a red flag. The reason it wasn't is there was so much hype around stem cell therapy 2017, 2016. It was talked about in all the groups, in all the Lyme groups, all the chronic illness groups. So people, and myself included, we didn't really have our critical hats on. We weren't really being critical and looking at things objectively, getting our emotion out. We were all so sick and feeling so crappy and feeling so desperate, and so many of us having had spent, 100,000 plus already, we were like, oh, there's, you would hear some miraculous stories, which I'll get to in a moment, of people who did these therapies, and you would be like, I have to go. So this is not going to be well thought out. This is just going to kind of be stream of thought, and I'm sure when I finish this video, I'll have forgotten some of the things I want to talk about. So, looking back after I finished Infusio, one of the things that people really did not like is Infusio had success rates. They had, and again, this is just my experience from what I heard and saw. Maybe I'm totally wrong, okay? But then again, this is just my experience. So don't sue me. There were Infusio put out, and as part of their kind of promotional material, success rates. And I don't remember how high, but it was very high. The amount of people that they said were cured, or again, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but they improved, they got better, right? They were a success case. They were a positive case. After I got out of Infusio, what started to come out was, so many people who had been in the program, 1, 2, 3 years prior, all these people were being like, we never got asked properly a questionnaire of if we got better or not. So this was after I already got out of Infusio. There was this beginning aspect of, okay, all these people, and it wasn't just one, it wasn't just two. This was in the Infusio group itself, guys and girls. I don't remember how many. My feeling was it was over 50. A lot of people who voiced up being like, we never got a questionnaire, and why are you saying that we're part of this percentage that got better? Again, and I think Infusio came back with, there must have been a misunderstanding. Again, maybe I'm totally making this up, but this is my opinion. This is what I remember seeing. Anyway, let me just go back to my experience at Infusio. So I get there, first day, everything's going fine. I don't have any red flags. Everyone's so excited. There's like 8 of us in the group. We're just very excited from all over the country. The first thing I kind of noticed was there was really only one nurse who had any type of experience. And what I mean by experience is everyone else felt very new. The physician's assistant, really amazing physician's assistant who left very soon after. She was there, my guess, less than half a year. I didn't get details of why she left. I'm sure she signed an NDA or something, but she was new. Most of the kind of nurses that were there, the ones helping to set the IVs, they were all pretty new. There was this one guy, one nurse, who led the show essentially. So a lot of new people, and yeah, and I just want to go back to the whole. In my case, they didn't ask for any type of verification that I have Lyme disease. They didn't care. So when I saw that doctor, and I know I'm going to be going back and forth, when I saw that doctor about a year before I signed up for Infusio, it was a complete waste of like $150. That was it. Basically, I didn't even need that. I didn't need to see that guy. I could have just called or emailed like the patient coordinator and been like, "Hey, I want to come do this program," and that would have been it. They would have said, "Great, send us money and we'll get you in." Looking back, that's a huge red flag. That I don't have to explain why that's a red flag in my opinion. So let's see. So the therapy begins. You're hopping around from doing 3 to 4 hours of IVs a day, sometimes 5, different beds, different lymphatic suits. It's like a whole hodgepodge of stuff, which seems a little strange now that they're just kind of throwing everything at you. I thankfully was not really sensitive. My veins could handle 5 hours of often 5 to 6 whole bags of IVs. But a lot of people had really bad reactions. These were really, really intense killing therapies, intense IVs. And a lot of people whom claim they got much worse since they stopped, when they stopped it, when they ended the therapy, when they ended the whole 2 weeks, a lot of it they claim it was just way too much on their body and their body just tanked. So for me, my experience, everything went fine. No issues really, until the last day. So what happened for me on the last day, and this can be backed up by a friend of mine who was waiting in the room for me to get out of the procedure. So if you don't know what happens, you're basically getting a liposuction. Not basically, you are. So first issue, which myself and a lot of other people had, this was a medical doctor, not a plastic surgeon, not someone who has done, trained and done lots of liposuctions. There was a loophole, which if it was a certain kind of liposuction, you didn't need a plastic surgeon to do it, or a cosmetic surgeon or whatever. So a lot of people that I've heard, their bodies are now deformed because of this liposuction. I experienced that for the first 6 to 8 months. Actually, no. I was sore for the first year after I did that procedure. I was sore in my lower back, upper glute area, on both sides, and I had some indentations and divots there. I know people, and I've seen pictures of people who were there 3-4 years ago, and they are their body does not look the same. And they say this wouldn't have happened if there was a properly trained cosmetic surgeon who does liposuctions for their entire job. So they used the medical director, Dr. Kim, who is also no longer there, I don't believe. They used her, who was in charge of the program, to do the liposuction. So my experience, and that's secondary what the issue I had with the last day. I experienced something very, very traumatic, which I've only really shared with a couple people personally, and also with the physician's assistant the day after the procedure. And she, again, left very soon after the program ended. What happened to me was I was beginning the liposuction. You're basically face down. They inject with some Novocaine or some numbing solution, and you hear this like suction, and they make an incision in your upper butt, lower back or whatever they can find fat. I don't have much fat on me, which a lot of people didn't have a lot of fat. A lot of really skinny people. I'm just checking the camera really quick. Sorry, guys. I know I'm getting to the top of the story. So I'm lying on the table, and what happens is they begin the procedure, which is extremely uncomfortable. It hurts, and she says, she was kind of surprised that it was hurting. It hurt like hell. Okay, that's not my issue. My issue is that there was a medical emergency with somebody else in my group. I'm not going to go into that. Well, okay, I'll go into that. She was given heparin, blood thinner, the morning before, either the morning of, the morning of the liposuction. So she began to, after she was done, I was the one right after her, she began to bleed a lot because it was a mistake. One of the nurses, it was a mix-up. They gave her heparin. She began to bleed. They had to rush her to the hospital. So there was mass chaos inside of this happen, and this emergency happened while I was face down, butt completely exposed, cuts in me, and there was a suction. I think they took it out, but I was completely alone. What happened is the medical doctor, Dr. Kim, one of the assistants in the room, everybody left. Everybody left for, I don't know how long. My guess, it was at least 20 to 30 minutes. It could have been an hour. Because I had no access to my phone. I had no access to anything. I was face down. I couldn't lift my head. I couldn't get up. I was literally cut open. I was on an operating table, guys. So I told my friend immediately what happened after. And my friend waiting for me in the room, where you go after you get the procedure, where they inject the stem cells into you, she was telling me like, oh my God, like there was an emergency and something happened. And then I told her, yeah, I know, I was laying face down on the table. I couldn't move. So nobody was there with me while I was literally in the middle of an operation. And that was very traumatic for me. And yeah, so if you're watching this and you work in Infusio, I'm letting you know what happened. That was horrible. I told the PA, she was on her way out. I don't think she even passed it on. I don't know. I don't know why she left, but she was probably fed up with the whole thing. And I know she was very fed up, and she was pissed that there was a lack of staff to handle an emergency and also be with somebody who's literally cut open on an operating table and just left them there. No, there was no staff that could have stayed with me and been like, hey, I'm staying with you because you have massive open incisions and I'm not going to leave you here. With no sense of how long they would be back. I had no idea how long they'd be back, right? So that's really why I wanted to make this video. That's my experience with Infusio. Whether that extrapolates out to other parts of their business, that's up to you to decide. I'm just letting you know exactly what happened. And yeah, that's exactly what happened to me, guys. So that sucked. I wish that upon nobody. Maybe that's suitable for malpractice. Maybe I could have done a lawsuit back then. I really don't know. I should have let them know, but ultimately I didn't. I passed it on to the PA. I was hoping I would have gotten some call from some Infusio staff and a fucking apology. Excuse my language. But there was no apology. So since then, I went 6 months later, I saw Dr. Kim. She offered me another round of drugs because I wasn't doing any better. I kept getting worse. I think it was called ACT, some cell therapy. I didn't do it because I had heard stories of people who did that and they got worse. So I was not going to do something else with them. At that point, I was completely over Infusio. The stories were coming out of people not getting well. The stories were coming out of, just really bad stuff that I was hearing. So trying to think if there's anything else before I end the video, but I think that is it, guys. That's what I wanted to make the video for. So, if you're thinking about going to Infusio, I think it's important to hear the great stories, because one thing Infusio is good at is marketing and advertising. They're an amazing marketing company. And I think it's important to realize that they have fact, this is a fact, I'm sorry, Infusio, they have deleted posts from their Facebook group that they do not want other people to see. They want to sell these programs, right? And this is a marketing company. I don't know how much money they were doing, but every 2 weeks, no, every week they were bringing in a new group of people, around 8 people a week, paying $25,000. So do the math. That's 8 times $25,000. We'll say that's $200,000 every week. 2,468. That's around $800,000 just from this Lyme program every month. All right, so I just had to change the battery for the camera. I will end the video there. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for listening to my story. And if you have any questions, reach out to me if you'd like. And thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.